this is a good point for that question. It's a long question, but I'm sure you get the gist of it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of all of the above. So again, if we looked at something like the tiger, the tiger is thought of as being like this intermediary creature that can shift between the physical realm and the spiritual realm, i.e. it can disappear at will. It can vanish before someone's mind. Well, certainly, animals that are that elusive these
are the stories that Charlie's talking about. Is people get emotional, they get you and Matt, I almost can guarantee that you've heard your share of these stories. And I think some of this might have something to do with that,
Certainly. Oh, well, you could just imagine, encountering an animal that's as rare and as elusive as a tiger. It probably does seem to materialize out of thin air and disappear into nothing. I mean,
it's fucking huge. Yeah.
There's even modern researchers who describe it that way. There's a great book about one man's pursuit of tigers in the field in Siberia called The Great Soul of Siberia. And he describes this one experience that's just amazing, where he's been, in this place in kind of like a stationary position with cameras, binoculars, etc., waiting for, because he would be out there sometimes like 6-7 months at a time. And he describes like hearing nothing, seeing nothing, and all of a sudden he looks over and there's this, what he thinks is like a cluster of orange mushrooms he hadn't noticed before. He's like, oh, that's interesting. And he realizes it's a face.
And it came out of nowhere.
And he says it to him, it was like, it was as if it materialized from nothing into our reality, so to speak. So again, that would be sort of one of those phenomenological experiences. The other thing that happens is, one of the things that's conserved in humans, but essentially in many mammals, all primates for sure, and the great apes, is what's called tonic immobility. It's the freezing response. Now, in a nutshell, the reason that we do that is our ancestors, long time ago, way before what we would think of as apes or hominoids, little rodent-sized primates that lived exclusively in trees, were hunted primarily by birds, snakes, and cats, all of which hunt primarily by motion. So the individuals that froze and sat perfectly still in the face of those predators were selected for. And so we have this innate, hardwired, involuntary response that we will freeze in the face of the unknown or the large menacing predator. And so you'll see very often people will say, and it's in the indigenous traditions, it's in the indigenous traditions about bears, tigers, and gorillas too, is that they can paralyze you with their mind, or they can paralyze you with their gaze.
And I think that, you're hitting the nail squarely on the head right now here, folks. So listen to this, Matt, because I think I know where you're going, but please continue.
Well, yeah. So in that, it's just like the description of the sun revolving around the earth. They're describing an actual experience, but they're putting the onus in the wrong place. Rather than saying the sun revolves around me, or rather than saying the animal can do that to me, there's something, fixed, innate within the human observer that's common across all those interactions that gets interpreted as, well, because, most of the animal world that an indigenous person would encounter, in times past, most animals are small. I mean, the animals that are bigger than us are few and far between.
Exactly. So
in terms of
especially walking on 2 feet, there's none. So.
If you look at the trophic pyramid, of big animals are in the smallest populations, right? And so it would be very rare to have those experiences and be frozen stiff. And so you'll see people talk about that. And so it gets interpreted as the animal can do this to a person.
Right.
Now, in archaic traditions, it was because they, could hypnotize you. And now, they've updated the nomenclature. So modern people go, oh, they generate infrasound and that can stun you and freeze you.
Well, I mean, that's there's a couple of those things. And I think just by your tone there, I think there's going to be people going, well, you weren't there when it happened to me, and you weren't there with that. I can see that right now on the other side of the thing. So again,
one of the other interesting things too,
it's part of the human nature that go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Just to kind of complete that point, we've gotten a number of really compelling sounds in the field, just in Area X alone, because we have these long duration sort of autonomous recording units that will record 6 months at a time. But then if you listen to all of the best purported Sasquatch vocalizations, things that have been studied by bioacoustic experts who could say this is definitely an animal, it's not mechanical or synthesized, and it doesn't correlate with any known mammal, there's still a preponderance of forest sounds. But one of the things that happens to the observer, I mean, I've talked to law enforcement officers who talk about this happening in a firefight, is not only do you get tunnel vision, but you're essentially going, what seems like you're going deaf. It's because all of your attention gets so laser focused on what it is that you need to survive that you're actually just not taking in that information and committing it to memory.
Right. Okay.
So
that makes sense.
People very often will say, in retrospect, the forest went quiet when I saw the I saw the Sasquatch, and then all the birds stopped chirping.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I know people this has happened to me. Like, have you ever been driving down the road and someone swerves into your lane and you think they're going to hit you? What color shirt were you wearing? What song was on the radio? Quick, tell me. You don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
I will usually follow that person home and beat the shit out of him. But
yeah. Well, you don't commit those things to memory because it wasn't really of much significance at the moment when you're trying to say, like, am I going to die? And so I do think that there's a lot of the things that when people are describing supernatural experiences,
or what they think. Yeah. Okay.
They're probably describing real experiences, but again, it's being interpreted in that sort of supernatural way. But that doesn't mean that they're lying. I mean,
of course not. And nobody's calling anybody out there a liar.
For sure.
It's just that I think that everybody takes it a different way. And